This beer is what you hope for. Months and months of planning and preparation all comes down to this. It's what you wait for, and it's what gets you through until the next one. Now, let's make some beer. For this beer, I'm starting with some reverse osmosis water, and I'm adjusting the water profile to match the yellow dry profile in Foeder. For the grain bill, I'm using 80% proximity base malt, 13% flaked oats, and 7% wheat. Let's get mashed in. Once everything is nice and saturated, I like to let the grain bed settle for a minute before turning on the recirculation, and this is a great time to add some lactic acid to balance the mash pH. This addition is based on my Brewfather recipe, and I'll double check the pH after some recirculation. Alright, after mashing for 90 minutes at 147 Fahrenheit or 64 Celsius, I raised the temperature to 167 Fahrenheit or 75 Celsius for mash out. Time to yank these grains and move on to the next step. With the basket up and out of the wort, I'm continuing to recirculate through the grain bed for a step called the Vorlauf. After about 10 minutes, I'm switching to the sparge manifold and sparging until I've collected the correct pre-boil volume. Now, let's crank this thing up and get our boil started. I've been aging some homegrown Tettnang in the rafters, and this will be perfect for this beer. The aging process reduces the acids contained within the hop so they won't interfere with the yeast and bacteria growth we need to turn this into sour beer. With a small handful in the kettle, the rest of this brew day should be pretty easy. I got the wort cooled down and transferred to the kettle, and the last thing I need to do is pitch the yeast. For primary fermentation, I'm using Imperial Citrus, and then I'll pull finished beer from the Solera and replace it with the beer we just brewed. For more info on the Solera process, make sure you check out my previous Solera videos, which are linked in the description. Now that I've made my pull from the Solera, I have an idea to finish it with some marigolds we grew in the garden. Marigolds have an amazing floral aroma, and they're supposed to have a peppery and citrusy flavor. To get that into the beer, I'm starting with equal parts water and corn sugar, then I'll heat and stir until it's fully combined. Now I'll add the marigold petals. As long as the simple syrup gets to about 140 degrees Fahrenheit, it should fully pasteurize. Now I'll just put the lid on and let it infuse as it cools to room temperature. A few hours later, I'm adding that mixture to a flask with some Philly Sour Yeast, and over the next few days, my hope is this will develop some lactic acid and retain the marigold flavor. Then I'll add it to a keg and transfer the Solera on top. It's been a couple months since I kegged my Solera, and it's just in time for the holidays. Before cracking into this tasting, my dad and I put together this awesome outdoor fridge sent to me by Newair, and in the process, he laid some serious dad knowledge on me. First, don't mess around with sharp knives.
Knife is right there. Careful, it's sharp as shit. You will not feel it.
And second, use some bottles and cans to make sure you nail your shelf height. Now, I think we earned some beer. It's a bright straw yellow with no head to speak of, but from the aroma, I think the marigold simple syrup definitely added something. It's floral and citrusy, and I can definitely smell some fruity Brett. Going in for a taste, it's nice and light with faint, spicy wheat and citrusy notes. For a sour beer, it's not super tart, and I think that's okay. I just wish there was some carbonation here. Looking back, I think the marigold simple syrup was a good idea, but don't rely on Philly Sour to add carbonation. It's just a little too finicky and doesn't work well under pressure. But with a little more time in the bottle, I'm sure this will come together. My name's Dan, this is Hops and Gnarly. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'll see you again soon.